All right, Jayant, and I hope I'm clearly audible and visible to all of you. My name is Tubdan Tamung, and this is the day 11 of recording daily videos for next 75 days. Therefore, I welcome you all back to my channel, and I'm really glad to have few viewers who are genuinely interested in the national and few international issues that affects our nation India, and which also benefits our India. So without wasting any further time, today we'll discuss about the integral constitutional right that has been granted to every every citizen of our country, and that very fundamental right is Article 19, specifically freedom of speech. Now, today we'll understand what freedom of speech actually is, and we will tackle one question about freedom of speech, that whether it should be absolute or not. Therefore, we start our today's video. Freedom of speech is the cornerstone of any democracy you see in the world, right? Therefore, it empowers citizens to question against the authority, express their ideas, express dissent, and exchange without fear of censorship, right? Therefore, without absolute freedom of speech, democracy risks becoming hollow object, right? And it will, as a result, it reduce the democracy will reduce to a system where participation is permitted only to the boundaries set by the ones who are earning very high, or for that matter those who are in power. So, right to freedom must be granted to each and every citizen, right? In India, what I see is right to freedom is there, but once you exercise your right to freedom, your right to life is not guaranteed, right? So that's there in specifically our country. Now, there are few arguments in favor of absolute freedom of speech, and those are, democracy thrives on debate, criticism, and on diverse opinion of everyone, right? So freedom of speech is must in order to refine, because if there's debate, if there's criticism, then the most of the things which is, the creamy layer comes out, right? Without negating the negative ones, we cannot, straight away select the positive ones. So I'm really sorry for the background noise, but yeah, without negating other bad option, we cannot choose the first good option at the very first, right? So democracy, in democracy, if everyone negates, if everyone gives their opinion, if everyone criticize, then the best part of the policy comes out, right? If speech is restricted, then citizen cannot hold leaders accountable, right? And this is the very issue we can see in contemporary times, where leaders are not accountable to people. And the very fact that, the only freedom of speech can save us, and it, plenitude of freedom of speech exercised by the citizen can assure the leaders being accountable to people. Therefore, the freedom of speech is must, and absolute freedom ensures that no authority can silence the opinion of general mass, right? So there must be freedom. Next, philosophers like J.S. Mill argued that the truth, the very truth in this world, emerges from the classes of ideas. And that's absolutely true. If you have multiple ideas, then there will be a clash between ideas, and then only the truth emerge as victorious, right? Therefore, in order to find the truth, we must have freedom of speech, you know in our country, right? Not just for the sake of speaking, rather taking our nation policies to the greater heights which benefit everyone, right? So that's there. Even false argument, even of false, or for that matter offensive debate, even vulgar criticism, right, on the policies contributes to, testing and strengthening it, right? Because if we criticize, then the best part of things comes out, right? If we do not criticize, then the things often tend to remain the same, right? So in that note, freedom of speech is very, very, very necessary. That's there. Now, after that, we will also understand about the protection against tyranny, right? How the freedom of speech protects a country from tyranny. History shows that authoritarian regimes begin by curbing speech. If people are not allowed to speak, if people are not allowed to raise the issue that they've been facing, then that is the very, secret masala or the secret sauce for any authoritarian form of government, right? So on that very note, freedom of speech shapes and it fights, it really fights against the tyranny. Next, absolute freedom prevents governments from deciding what is acceptable, is it not? If people keep on questioning the government, then government would be, they would be compelled to form a policy, or, to introduce or make any scheme that is acceptable, right? So that's there. Often citizens remain empowered to resist propaganda and manipulation if there is, you know, freedom of speech. So that's there. And fourth aspect of freedom of speech is individual autonomy. Freedom of speech is not just political, but it is personal, right? So freedom of speech is not for personal gain, rather for the whole general mass, right? Because if one, even if one dare to speak, then it will benefit all, right? So freedom of speech is must, not just for, any, public thing, but also for every, not just for one, not just confined to a society, but rather for whole state, in matter of public policy formation and every schemes that the government creates. So that's there. Third is, it allows individual to express their identity, beliefs and creativity, right? So freedom of speech is again must. And third thing is, restricting speech undermines human dignity and self expression. So on that note, freedom of speech is must, not just for, public sake, but also for personal dignity and, you know personal and individual autonomy. So that's there. Now we will counter all these arguments. Now we'll look into the, arguments against that speaks for the freedom of speech. Firstly, we have, critics argue that absolute freedom allows harmful speech such as hate speech, propaganda, and, incitement among the own, citizens. That's there. Next is rebuttal and more speech. The solution to harmful speech is counter speech, education, and debate, not censorship. Restricting speech gives governments dangerous power to decide what counts as harm. If no one speaks, then government have the sole authority to decide what wrong and what right is. Therefore, freedom of speech is again a must, right? And third, absolute freedom ensures that society, not the state, judges the idea, right? If there's absolute freedom, then society, state, and all the courts cannot judge. If there's freedom, then people can voice out their opinion, ideas, you know not just going with the flow of state judges, rather making an opinion what actually suits them, what actually is, you know I mean, what actually is actually needed to them, rather than blindly following state judges and government, or for that matter society. So freedom of speech is must. In conclusion, absolute freedom of speech is the lifeblood of democracy. While it may sometimes allows offensive or hate speech or controversial ideas, but it's better being controlled by the state, right? It's better to have such, clashing criticism, such, sometimes offensive ideas or remarks on government, but it's fine if you compare to authoritarian government, right, where state controls everything. I can best example I can give is of North Korea. Therefore, if we compare and balance both North Korea and the country which exercise the freedom of speech, then definitely I would go with the one who exercises freedom of speech, right? North Korea is far more dangerous than any country which gives them, basic right to freedom, right? So that's there. Democracy cannot truly exist unless every citizen has the unrestricted right to speak, criticize. They must have the right to criticize, right, and challenge the very authority that governs them. So freedom of speech is really must, and as enshrined in our Indian Constitution, I hope this prevails, right? This right prevails to each and every corner of our country, and may they exercise this right for the greater good of the nation and for the well being of everyone. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Thank you.